Mary, what do you think of the French Revolution?
I think the French Revolution was better. Well, at first when the old regime was established, it was like going down by the laws that were set, it wasn't really that great. But after they created the new political order, and it was based more on like equality and rights and everything like that. So that means that women started to get equal rights and more freedom.
So you think the French Revolution did more for women's rights than the American Revolution did? Okay. Voltaire, what do you think of the French Revolution? Especially as a Frenchman yourself.
I agree with the French Revolution. I think it was better than the American Revolution because everyone had equal rights.
Okay. All right. And what about protections of freedom of speech? Was there something in there for the French Revolution that guaranteed that?
Yeah, and the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. In Article 1 it said men are born, and the man creates the rights of social distinction that can be established only for the common benefit.
Thomas?
I think that the French Revolution has the same idea as the American Revolution, to give equal rights to both the law and the people, as in the social contract.
So, what is it? You think it was okay? So there's a similarity there. Okay.
I think the American Revolution was better because the French Revolution, I think it was mostly about classes and to end the different classes and have equal rights instead of rights for each class.
So you think the American Revolution is more about better government and the French Revolution was more about better living conditions? Okay, I can see that. So how is your perspective different from Mary's?
I'm more of everybody's equality and rights than just women.
Okay.
With men.
All right. You agree with that difference?
Yeah.
Jacques.
Yes.
What are some similarities and differences to the revolutions?
They were similar because the French Revolution and the American Revolution, they were kind of, in a way, what we call equality. I like believe in the protection of life, liberty, and property. So I like the French Revolution better because that's more so what it focused on. And the classes, like making them more equal than it was with an American Revolution.
So would the rest of the panel agree that the French Revolution did more to guarantee people's rights than the American Revolution did? Okay, so if you believe that, show of hands. Okay, and why do you believe it? Why do you believe it?
Because after the American Revolution, they still had slavery and women slaves and Native Americans weren't equal. It was just British.
Okay.
So it wasn't everyone was
The American
equal.
Revolution was like basically for white men.
Okay. And since you weren't in agreement, is there a reason that you disagree with the idea that the French Revolution did a better job of extending new rights and protecting the people's rights than the
Yes,
American?
because if the French Revolution was more than just rights, like it was just, they say like the constitutionalism, I don't know what that means, but, and like basically just more about equality, like not just like, I know rights grant equality, but still just the basis of it was more about equality, like.
You said rights grant equality, so you're saying that if you have rights that you have achieved equality, if everybody has the same rights.
Well, if that right gives you the right to equality.
Okay. But, okay, so the statement of your rights leads to an explanation of ways that human beings are equal. I think that's what you're saying. Okay. And so you don't agree necessarily that the American Revolution did a better or lesser job than the French Revolution? Is that what you think? I think he articulated the point. Is there anything you want to add to it?
I mean, did they still have slaves in France?
In France, they didn't have institutional slavery, like people were owned, like in the United States.
And there was lesser rights for that.
Right, but 97% of the population was in grinding poverty, so they had, from their perspective, there was little difference between having nothing your whole life and being a slave. You know, just because somebody doesn't own you in name doesn't mean that you have, you know, your freedoms or your rights of equality.
The peasants were still hired as laborers.
Right, but like it was. The way it would work would be, you know, you'd be hired to do labor, but you do it on my land, and since I own the land and you need it to survive, I kind of own you. It's like that. Yeah. Right. So I mean, you can in France, like you could leave the land. You know, you could go out on your own and be a wanderer or something like that, but you're probably not going to make it too long. All right. Let's check out this group. Mary, what did you think of the French Revolution? Did it go well?
Yes,
Tell me why.
because instead of focusing on the rights of just, well-established white men, they focused on the rights of everyone from poverty to the established. And, in there, there's women, they focused on it.
Okay, so it includes more rights for people regardless of social class, and that's a benefit to women too.
Yes.
So you said that compares how they're different. Which one do you think is most important so far, and why?
Revolution.
Yeah, American Revolution or French Revolution. Of the ones we've compared so far, which one do you think is most important and why?
I think the American Revolution.
Tell me why.
Because even though they focused on mostly established white men, the French Revolution was still in turmoil when I was there, and they had to go like replacing their heads of government and stuff like that, and we were trying to separate from our government.
So it was a cleaner break, certainly less messy, right? Trying to establish one where already exists, whereas just replacing one. Okay. Voltaire, what do you think? What were the similarities or differences?
Well, they both were trying to give people rights.
So that's a similarity. Difference?
The difference is, like the French, they were already like established in America, but something new.
All right. Why was you said that you liked the French Revolution? Why is it that you like it?
I just like personally, I just like Christians and like because they're intolerant and with most religions. And in France, the French Revolution, Christians they kept themselves to themselves. They kept their religion to themselves because the citizens must enjoy their own private living.
Okay. So do you think the French Revolution and the American Revolution did a better job of protecting religious liberty? Okay. John.
I like the French Revolution. I think it's better. And that's only because the French Revolution actually tried to put the practice of enlightenment and the political views of enlightenment into practice. Although the French Revolution, they burned down a couple churches or what have you, the taxes, the way they taxed and the way they still kind of looked at it was still divided into social classes. And they still kind of like treated the peasants wrong. Like the peasants got like 50% land taxes while the elite class only got 2%. So it's a different, it's different in.
Well, that's from before the French Revolution.
Well, I'm sorry.
Once the revolution occurs, then all the taxes and they're trying to make differences go away, right? So they might actually giving the peasants who were farming that land, that might be theirs now. They're out in the countryside.
Yeah, possibly.
Okay.
We're in the city. And the American Revolution. And one thing about the French Revolution that's kind of similar to my beliefs are liberty, equality, and fraternity. And mine are I want to secure freedom, equality, and justice. So they're kind of, sort of similar in a way. And
so, who do you think did a better job of setting up what those what it is to protect liberty? The Declaration of the Citizens and the Rights of Man, or the American Constitution, Bill of Rights? I mean, they have a lot of similarities.
Yeah, that's like, okay.
You know what? Grill it and we'll come back.